Beaumont.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a great pleasure to rise and join colleagues in speaking in support of the Hamilton City Council Parana Park Vesting Bill 2010. And members might be wondering, why am I speaking on this bill as an Auckland-based MP? And I'm very happy to answer that question. Why am I? Well, interestingly enough, Parana Park is somewhere that I have very fond memories of myself, and not for the sort of reasons that Mr Mallard was referring to earlier. I have to say, I am actually a Waikato girl. I grew up in a place called Ohaupo that some of you may know, and went to school there and secondary school at Melville High School in Hamilton, and indeed on to university at the University of Waikato. And and of course that is where I got to spend time at Parana Park, because in fact I lived very close to Parana Park. And it is a beautiful park on the shore, of course, of the river, on the banks, I should say, of the Waikato River. And Hamilton is, of course, blessed to have the Waikato River running through the city, and it is an important feature of that city. And the fact that it, isn't on the coast is quite unusual for a large city, but it is made up for, of course, by the beauty of the Waikato River. Now, in speaking to this bill, I realise this is the first time I've actually spoken on a local bill. And as a relatively new Member of Parliament, as of course you do, you think, well, what is this about? I just better make sure I know what I'm talking about. So I went to this very important source, David McGee's Parliamentary Practice in New Zealand, just to check out what local bills, of course, are about, and understand that, in fact, local bills came into force after the abolition of provincial government in 1876, that they are bills promoted by a local authority, in this case the Hamilton City Council, and must be confined in their effects to a particular locality, in this case Parana Park. And so that was quite interesting to read that, and of course the local authority promotes the bill but has a Member of Parliament, in this case David Bennett, the National Member of Parliament for Hamilton East, and a member I work quite closely with, in fact, on the Transport and Industrial Relations Select Committee. Now, it was very interesting in hearing some of the history that people have spoken about, and I do absolutely concur with the point that Rahui Kakane made, that in fact it's important to recognise all of the history when we're talking about a particular locality. And one of the things I think, sadly, probably for every member in this House, is that our own schooling, in fact, and maybe this has changed, I hope so, but our own schooling did in fact focus very much on post-colonial history. So we learned a great deal about events that happened in our recent history, and less so about the events more before that. And I think that sometimes these very local histories can be hugely important to people in understanding the places that they live, and the interaction between, for example, the original residents of the area, the tangata whenua, and more recent arrivals. So I think it's been very interesting actually hearing some of that history in the course of this debate. And my own dealings with Parana Park, well, as I say, I lived near there when I was a student at Waikato University, and it is a very beautiful place, and quite often, in fact, I would spend time there enjoying the nice environment that is there. And as Ms Moroney said, we in fact used to have various demonstrations or events there to cover particular political points. And so I've spent time there in that sort of capacity. And I just also, while I'm talking about my colleague Sue Moroney, want to note that, of course, she's recently been selected as our candidate for Hamilton West, and I'd just like to congratulate her on that selection. She is a very powerful advocate for Hamilton, somebody that has lived in the area a very long time, is closely connected to the city, and does a great deal of good work in Hamilton. Now, of course, coming back to the purpose of the bill, this bill vests the Parana Park land in Hamilton City Council as a recreation reserve under the Reserves Act 1977. This therefore requires the repeal of the existing legislation covering Parana Park, the Hamilton City Parana Park Empowering Act 1958. And as others have said, we do support this bill, and it is uncontroversial. It is important that Parliament does reflect the interests of our local authorities in this way and deals with issues like this. Finally, I just want to take the point that Sue Kedgley made.
The member doesn't have a finally. Her time
that's
has
a shame.
expired.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Todd McClay.